So if, like me, you're into your backpacking and camping, or maybe you're just thinking about getting started in the hobby, then I would bet money that you have done this when it comes to the gear that you need. I know I have done it countless times, and I'm sure that I'll do it countless times in the future. When it comes to choosing the gear that you need, it can sometimes feel a little bit overwhelming. There's so many options out there, so many things to choose from, and there's so many contradictory opinions out there as well. It can be a little bit confusing when it comes to picking the right bits of gear for you. There's all these different specs and fancy words like hydrostatic head, and if you've never done any sort of camping or backpacking before, you don't necessarily know what all of these mean, and do they really affect you when it comes to getting out on the hill and enjoying a night under the stars. It's quite ironic really. It's been a little bit warm for me for camping. 37 degrees it said in the car yesterday. It's a little bit cooler today and that breeze is gorgeous, but hopefully next week it'll be cool enough to dig the tent and the backpack out. But I haven't been wasting my time. Oh no, I've been getting out for little walks like this, and I've also been spending plenty of time scouring the internet, window shopping for the next bit of gear, watching videos on YouTube, the latest releases, listening to all the different opinions on the latest camping gear and tech as well. I've been looking at cameras. Not that I really need either of those, but it doesn't stop you looking. It doesn't stop you being persuaded that you maybe need that latest bit of gear. But the reality is you don't really need that much. Just a pair of trainers and shorts today, and my camera so I can bring you along for the ride. So when you get out of that breeze, the oven gets turned up a little bit. Not complaining. Let's get a bit of shade. So I've been looking at quite a lot of gear lately. Comparing different products, different tents, looking at the specifications, the prices, the weight differences, all of these different things. I must admit, I've been overthinking it. Which brings me back to the question that I posed at the start. I would bet money that all of us at some point have overthought things when it comes to choosing equipment and gear for whatever the hobby is that we do. Mine just happens to be camping and backpacking. I'm going to need to move, get up to that breeze again. That is literally like an oven in there. That is so much better. Where was I? Yeah, the reason that I would bet money is because I know that you do it. I get emails every day. I get questions every day asking me about recommendations for gear, asking me my thoughts on the differences between certain bits of equipment. Questions like, would you choose the Wild Country Helm 2 tent over the Nature Hike Cloud Peak 2 tent? Which is better for winter? Which is better in the wind? Which is lighter? All of these kind of things. And the reality is, we spend far too much time comparing and overthinking about minute details. The reality is that most tents pretty much do the same thing. As long as you buy in from a reputable company, easy for you to say, and the materials are waterproof and it's of a certain strength when it comes to the nylon fly sheet, each tent will probably do the most of what the next tent will do. I'll just put a ballpark figure out there. The Cloud Peak 2 will do 87% of what the Helm 2 will do, and vice versa. Both of those tents are great, by the way, but there may be tiny compromises that you have to make depending on which one you choose. One may have a little bit more headspace, one might have a little bit more internal space, whereas one might have more room in the porch or vestibule to store your backpack and your wet gear. But you could just as easily pack your second-hand 2012 Van Gogh Banshee, go climb a mountain. It may have a little bit less internal space, might have a smaller vestibule, but one thing that you never have to compromise on is the camping experience. When you stood outside your tent, you've got a beautiful sunset views for miles. The mountain certainly doesn't give a shit what tent you've got. So when you finish watching this one, another video might pop up on your feed showing you the latest and greatest tent iteration. I've been fortunate enough to be able to borrow the new Nortent Vern 1, which is all the rage at the moment. But it is still way too warm a tent for these conditions. So I can't get out in it at the moment. There are new models and brands popping up all the time, from TFS tents, Storm Grotta, maybe even the Optimus Nomad, which claims to be the only tent you ever need. But if you've only got a 2012 Van Gogh Banshee, that might be the only tent you ever need. You might only go camping a couple of times a year, but as long as it's still going strong and keeps out the elements, what more do you really need? Right, just one minute to say thank you to Squarespace, who's kindly sponsored the video today. So if you don't know who Squarespace are, I think they're the #1 platform if you want to have a go at building a website all by yourself. It's really easy to do. You don't need any experience in web design or coding. All I did was choose one of their ready-made templates, uploaded my own photos and added some text. And within a couple of hours, website job done. Even the missus has got a website. She's recently done a full revamp of her online gallery and art shop. Squarespace makes it so easy to change templates, colours, fonts, swap photos around. There's loads of different features. You can set up a shop, subscription services. My personal favourite is just checking the analytics to see where everyone's having a nosy from. So if you fancy having a go at building your own website, if you click the link in the description below or head over to squarespace.com/Paul Messner, you'll get a 14-day trial, and when you're ready to go live, you'll get 10% off your first purchase. So thanks Squarespace for sponsoring us. This thought process applies to pretty much all types of backpacking gear. It's not just reserved for tents. It could be your backpack, as I said earlier. Other than specific, volume limitations, there's no point in trying to take a winter backpacking setup in a 20-litre backpack. You just can't fit it all in. That is just physics. But I found that 2 different 50-litre backpacks will do 87% of what the other one will do. Some might have a few straps here and there. Some might have a little bungee compartment. The other one might have a zip compartment at the top where you can put your car keys. Stoves are the same. And one of my earliest gas stoves was the MSR Pocket Rocket 2, and it would do 87% of what my latest MSR Pocket Rocket Deluxe will do. The original one, it never let me down. It boiled water for me on every occasion. I always had a hot meal. With the exception of sleeping bags and sleeping pads, you'll pretty much find that the rest of backpacking gear, whatever you get, it'll do the job. Sleeping bags are a little bit different. They have got specific ratings when it comes to temperature control and things like that, comfort, and we're all different, but I'll save that one for a different video. So if all that is true and most gear will do the job just fine, why do we overthink it when it comes to buying gear? So I've got a few thoughts on that. Firstly, I think it's human nature that we want the best of things in life. We want the best that we can afford, whether that's the best food, whether it is the best house, best car, within reason. And camping and backpacking gear, the clothes that we wear, everything's included in that, I suppose. You go to work, you work hard, you earn your pay, and you want to spend it on the things that you like doing, things that make you happy. You've worked hard for that. You shouldn't have to compromise. Just get the best that you can. It doesn't have to be the best that's available, just the best that you can with the budget that you've got. And that's usually been sound advice for years, hasn't it? The next reason I've come up with is that we don't want to be judged, laughed at or ridiculed within our little community. When you think about it, going back to when I was a kid, if you didn't have the right trainers on your feet, people laughed at you, people picked on you. People are judging you all the time. I've seen, when I first got my Hilleberg tent, I used to go in the forums quite a lot, and some of the owners of Hillebergs would laugh at people that suggested a Van Gogh Banshee as the first tent to buy. You need to buy a Hilleberg because it is the best. The best at what? The best for who? Don't get me wrong, they are beautifully well made tents, but they're not the best at everything. Might not be the best you can afford, which brings me on to the next reason. Some of these bits of gear now are extremely expensive, and you do not want to make an expensive mistake. You don't want to spend 2, 3, 4, 5 plus £100 on a tent and it not be the right thing for what you need. Now, if you're spending £500 on a tent, I would imagine it will do you for 80%, 87% of the situations. But if you're buying a top of the range black label Hilleberg, it's no good for weather like this. So have you wasted your £1,200? Not if you're predominantly camping in winter in storms and things like that. But in conditions like this, you might want something a little bit lighter and airy. Maybe a 3FUL Lanshan that's got a full mesh inner. Some of the MSR tents where you can actually take the fly sheet off. You've got to be thinking about the type of camping and backpacking that you're going to be doing, and then you buy your gear for around what you're going to be using it most of the time. And then if you find that the situation is not suitable, let's say you've only got one tent and it's a 4-season tent. I'm not camping this week, it's just too warm. I have got lighter weight tents, but even then it's just too warm for me. I don't want to be camping in these kind of conditions. But some people, they only want to camp in weather like this. So just buy what is suitable for that. Sometimes the overthinking might come down to being afraid that you'll buy something and then a new model will come out. You look at some of these brands like Nortent, like TFS, it feels like there's a new tent coming out every month, not far off anyway. And you buy something and 5 minutes later there's something else comes along. This wonderful marketing that is out there saying how much better this new product is. The Nortent as an example, the original Vern was meant to be a killer of the Hilleberg Solo, and it turned out that there were a few little flaws in the design and a few of them were breaking. But since then they've made changes, iterations, they've learnt from the mistakes, and Model 3 or whatever they're on now, you waiting to see whether the problems have been ironed out. The Thurston X-Mid was the same. That has had so many different improvements made over the iterations, and it's a fantastic tent. But when the first one came out, it was still a fantastic tent, but people held off because they didn't know whether or not it would be the one, or they'll wait until they've ironed out the few little niggles. But in the meantime, you could be sat at home stuck without a tent. Whereas if you'd have not overthought it, bought it, used it, made the most of it, you'd have created all those memories and had all of those wonderful experiences in places like this. Now let's flip that coin, because there are occasions where overthinking it might do you a favour. Despite all of us overthinking it sometimes, we still make mistakes. Obviously, we don't think about it hard enough. You can have a look now on eBay or Facebook Marketplace at the dozens and dozens of expensive bits of gear that are for sale. And the amount of times you see Hilleberg tent for sale, as new, only ever been pitched in the front room, only ever been pitched in the garden. Are they expensive mistakes? Why has that person bought that when they've never even been out and used it? They haven't really thought it through. It's arrived, they've had a look at it and thought, I've made a mistake here, this isn't for me, this is too small inside, this is not, it's heavier than I expected it to be. The specs are there. You've done all of the spreadsheets, you've done the let's have a look at it, compared it against the other tents. yet you've still bought it, and now you've got it on Facebook for now. Well, not now, because those kind of tents you get your money back, don't you? But we still get it wrong sometimes, and I suppose that is the beauty of life, isn't it? You learn from your mistakes. I'd like to think so anyway. And there are some of us, including me, we are just gear nerds, gear addicts, gearaholics, whatever you want to call us. We're always trying to find that holy grail, or we're always looking for something else, just something different. Maybe we just like trying new things. From the outside it does look a little bit crazy, and I have to admit sometimes it can be a little bit of a waste of money, but it's my passion. It might be your passion too, and who am I to judge what you spend your money on? And as crazy as it is, this little gear addiction of mine has allowed me to do this kind of thing every day, so I'm very grateful of that. Right, that is it for this little chit chat. Hopefully next time it's cool enough to actually get out camping. Let me know in the comments the extent of your gear overthinking syndrome. How far do you take it? Do you have spreadsheets? Do you put the weights down? Do you have a scoring system? Let us all know. We'll be interested to find out. Anyway, I shall see you in a bit.